my lovelies, welcome back to my little corner of the internet. My name is Molly May and I'm the maker behind Ponder and Ply. Primarily I'm a knitter. I also dabble in a little bit of knitwear design and I'm hoping to scale that up over the coming months. But really at heart I just like being creative. I also love vintage fashion. I love dressing over the top in things that just simply make me happy. This is quite muted for me today, but there you go. I do have a big friffy skirt on, because friffy is a word. And the other thing I love is travel. I do a lot of travel, mostly around Europe at the moment. Me and my husband. If you saw my last episode, you'll know I am now married. Last year we tried to do a trip a month to just a cheap holiday somewhere in Europe for a long weekend to explore a new city or place. We didn't quite do every month. I think we ended up doing 9 of the 12 because the other bit of news that you may have seen from my last video, this one, go back if you haven't watched it yet, please. That was very commanding, wasn't it? Go back and watch it. You don't have to, but should you be interested, I go through some of the makes that I've made over the last year and a half. But yes, towards the end of last year, I became pregnant and still am. We're still working on our most important whip, and travel came to a bit of a standstill because I had a very rough couple of months. But we are doing a few trips now, making the most of it before baby arrives, although have to be on a bit of a strict budget. But what you can see behind me is what I picked up on our last trip, which meant my budget went out the window. So what we are here to talk about today is my trip to Oslo. In January it was Robert's 30th, so for his birthday I took him away, and that's where I decided to go. Entirely selfish, it being one of the knitting capitals of the world, and I documented some of the shops that I visited, some of the things I bought, and I want to share it with you, so that's what we're doing today. First of all, I thought we'd review what I brought with me. Like I said, we're trying to keep our travels budget friendly, so we didn't actually even pay for a carry-on suitcase. We just had the free baggage allowance, which is a rucksack. So the rucksack I bought is this one. It's actually a really great rucksack that I got off of Amazon, but it meets the dimensions of free baggage. You may be wondering, A, how I fit my wardrobe in there, and B, how I got all of this yarn back without having to pay extra baggage. But I'll give you that trick at the end. So I decided that knitwear takes up a lot of space, so I had to be very restrictive of what I brought with me. So this jumper that I'm wearing is the only jumper that I brought with me. This is the Norma Jean by Fable Knitwear. I knit it in, I think it was in drops. It'll be on my Ravelry page, I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a drops, but I don't know which drops. Drops Nord, yes, maybe. I think I knit it in drops Nord. Who knows, apparently this is a knitting podcast. And I thought it goes black, it's classic, it's warm with its, I've made the neck longer than what it says in the pattern I knit. It's I think 20 centimetres. I also wrote some notes on my Ravelry page on how I did the short rows because I found the pattern really unclear and quite confusing around the short rows. And then I also did, there's a notes in the pattern to make sure that the shoulder puffs, I don't know how well you can see with it in black, line up with your shoulders, and mine needed less increases up here and more down here in order to line up. So I wrote all of my notes on how I did that in my Ravelry page. So anyway, this is the only jumper that I brought with me. Then I thought, what other knitwear do I need? Well, I obviously need hat, scarf, mittens. We're going to Oslo in January. It's not the warmest place in the world at the best of times, let alone in January. So I brought my Anya set. This is patterns designed by myself. So the Anya hat is already released, it's been released for quite a while. Likewise with the Anya scarf. The Anya mitts are an interesting one. I finished them almost exactly a year ago for this trip when we went to Iceland last January. I made them whilst we were there. I wrote all of my notes down. I was going to write it up and release a pattern, and I cannot for the life of me find my bloody pattern or my notes. So I will release a pattern for these. They're very simple but classic, and they go very nicely. They're also very warm. However, I can't do that yet because I don't have my notes, so I'm probably going to have to reverse engineer my own knit in order to get the pattern, which drives me crazy considering I already did all of the work. Oh, I have a dog right next to me. You can't see her, but she's literally on my armchair, which is right here. So if you hear her moving around, you're making my chair muddy mush. My little dog mushy. That completely distracted me. Anyway, there will be a pattern for this at some point. Let me know if you are interested. But I will probably wait till next winter to release it because it's starting to warm up a tiny bit here. And I don't know how much longer people will be knitting mittens for, but let me know. And then the last thing I brought was my nomad hood, which I have never photographed because I look like a worm when I wear it. And I do not plan on photographing it. I thought maybe I'd wear it if it was really cold, but actually whilst it was in the early minuses, it didn't feel that cold in Oslo, and I didn't feel the need to wear it. I had a big fur coat, with long vintage fur coat with me, faux fur I promise, and then I brought a handful of I brought a handful of circle skirts, thinking that'll give me lots of room. Let me stand up. I've got one on here, it's very beautiful. However, I'm not sure if you can see, I can't zip them up anymore, not even close. How was I ever that tiny? I don't know. But I was very sillily, is that a word? I have foolishly put a white top on underneath, which where this is pulling on some of the extra increases I added, you can see the white through. I normally wear a black top underneath and you can't tell, and likewise at the back of the zip I've got a black top on. I think it blends in and I can't see the back anyway, so that's fine. Oh, and I had to go for one pair of shoes, so I had one pair of Chelsea boots, which were pretty good considering how slippery and icy it was everywhere in Oslo. That is one thing that surprised me, is a few of the streets were salted, but lots of them were not, and it was literally like an ice rink when we were walking around, which was a little bit scary. But I take tiny little fairy steps that my partner laughs at me for, and he was slipping and sliding even though he had real hiking boots on because he marches. I think it's the pressure just went whoop. I did write a list before we went of some of the things I wanted to pick up. One of my favourite yarns I ever worked with that I picked up the last time I was in Norway is Raume Finnel, which I know a lot of you will have heard of, but it's quite hard, or at least I found it quite hard to get it in the UK. So I knew that I wanted to pick up quite a lot of it when I was there. So I wrote myself a list looking at my Ravelry queue of all the things that I wanted to make, and if I happened to see the right colour for, I would pick up. So all of these behind me actually do have projects associated with them. So let's have a look at what my list was, and then after that we can see how many of the things I got. One of the things top of my queue is the Forestberry jacket by Fable Knitwear. I've wanted to make this for the longest time, and I am on a real lilac trip at the moment. I have a Manhattan hat that is lilac that I wear all the time. I think it complements my skin tone and my hair quite well. I think I see a lot of warm tones on Instagram, and I love all of the beautiful colours, everyone dressing in browns and oranges and warm reds, and I'm so drawn to them, but they do not flatter me in the slightest. I am definitely a cool toned girl, and you'll notice that from a lot of the yarns behind me. I don't stick to what suits me exclusively. Obviously I want to also pick colours that make me happy, but I have found that colours like lilac, which my mother always tells me is an old lady colour, suit me. And so I've had that hat, I wear it all the time. Then I've recently finished, which I'll show you in my next video, what I made in February. I recently finished a jumper also in lilac for hiking with the dog, and it's beautiful and I find it very flattering also. So I'm very excited to bring lilac into my pin-up 50s wardrobe. Another jumper that I was considering making and would like to get yarn for is the Lion and Unicorn jumper by Susan Crawford. I think this one is absolutely beautiful and I wanted to do it in the traditional navy and white. I am very keen to make quite a lot of knits from this particular book. I think it's called Jubilee Knits. I have it somewhere in my book collection over here, and it's just classic vintage knits inspired by the British English monarchy, and I'm not a big fan either way. I don't have a particularly strong opinion about the monarchy in the present day in the UK. However, I love the style and the knits and how quintessentially British it is, and I'm very keen to make quite a few of those. If you watched my last video, you'd have seen my Delacour cardigan, which I love and wear all the time. I want to make another one of these, but in yellow. I have quite a few yellow summer dresses, which are not cool toned, I know, and they're maybe not particularly flattering, but I love them so much. Yellow for me is such a happy summer colour, and I would really like some more yellow to pair with that, but also to wear with like navy dresses and things like that. I feel like it has a lot of uses in my wardrobe, and I don't currently own anything that's yellow. A bit more of an involved make that I'm really interested in making is the Synkestra cardigan by Skein-Deer. This is beautiful. I love the classic vintage fit of the cardigan, but also the really lovely cables. I am planning on making one, but making it quite a bit more cropped than the sample, and I really want one in a light grey. I know that's quite a boring colour, and I'm usually quite into my all mixes of colours, but I feel like it would go really well with some of my more crazy dresses. So I've found that looking at my wardrobe, I have lots and lots of bright beautiful dresses, and then I have lots and lots of bright beautiful knits, and sometimes that's a bit much, and it's nice to balance it out, so having a more neutral dress with a brighter knit or a brighter knit with a more neutral dress. So my closet who am I? I'm English. Closet. Wardrobe. My wardrobe. And when I say it like that, it makes me think of Lion Witch and the Wardrobe, the Narnia book, which I grew up having read to me. That's very nostalgic and completely unrelated. So I'm very keen to make some more neutral coloured knits with the pure purpose of pairing them with my some more wild outfits to balance it out. Now this one's not a cardigan like all of the others, or most of the others. The Homefront Tee by Squidney Knits. I really, really love this. I think it's going to be so classic, and I think I'm going to wear it an absolute ton. I wrote down a few colours for this, and I really would like to make several, but I'm going to try one first before I buy all of the yarn to check that I like the fit. But I was thinking like a bright blue, I was thinking a sage green, I was thinking a red. I can see lots of these in my wardrobe. I do have a pink tumble tee that I test knitted and I wear all the time. I think this year I have a feeling this next year I want some more, do you know the traditional sweater girl sweaters from the 50s where they're sort of fitted and cropped with short sleeves and they pair really well with everything? I see a lot of that in my future. Living in the UK, it does get cold even in the summer, and it's not, most days are not so warm that you don't need a light layer to sort of throw on and off. So I think that's going to be a really, really great item for me. Another Squidney Knits pattern is the Rose Street cardigan. My brain froze halfway through that sentence and I was like, Rose, what was it? Rose Street. And I would like to make this in red. It's a really beautiful classic cardigan. I love all of her patterns. Fable Knitwear makes another appearance with the Queenie cardigan. This is beautiful. I love a peplum. I don't have anything like this self-made in my wardrobe at the moment, and I think it will be really quite flattering. So I was thinking a classic cream or navy or black for this. One for me is I would like to design a plain cardigan. I say I would like to, but I am in the process of designing quite a plain v-neck cardigan, but with a very vintage shape that I don't think I've seen another pattern for. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen one. It's going to have a very, very deep V to be worn over the tops of dresses, and I really wanted to pick up some navy yarn for this. The one and only thing that I wanted that was not vintage style related and pattern related was the Amy slipover that has taken over the internet over the last year or two. I really, really, really wanted to pick up some yarn for this and to get the pattern, because I know the pattern's quite hard to get. I think it's from the Sadness Gone, I don't think I'm saying that right, book. And I know I'd use it a ton on dog walks. I also like that you can tie the sides, which gives me room with my growing belly. And a transitional piece in the UK will be used all year round, because that's just the kind of weather that we have. So that was my shopping list that I was bringing with me. I had no intention of getting every single thing on that list. I just wanted to list my options. I wrote down the yardages, the colours, the yarn weight. I think almost all of that list is fingering weight yarn, and I knew that most of it I would prefer to use Rauma, because I know how much I like it. And my beautiful Rauma jumper that I made by Skein Deer, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll pop a picture in, has been eaten by moths. So they seem to really like it too, so rest assured all of this will be ziplocked again once I've finished doing this video. But I had that list and I thought, let's just see what I end up with. I knew I had limited space in my bag, and so I thought that would help me practice self-restraint. You may quickly realise that that is not what happened. We landed on Saturday afternoon. It was really beautiful. It was fresh and chilly but sunny, and we actually flew into, so there's two Oslo airports, which I did not realise, and the budget airlines fly into the one that's way further from the city, so we had to get a coach which was like an hour and a half into the city centre, which I should have planned better for. But there you go, it was fine. It was a very easy coach ride. For someone that gets quite travel sick, it actually wasn't too bad. Then we got off at the bus station, which is right in the centre, and we walked down to the very famous Opera House, which is on the water, and it's absolutely beautiful. The sun was setting, it just felt really romantic, and we just took a stroll around. There were some sculptures to look at, and it was just really picturesque and a nice welcome to Oslo. It definitely awed me when we first got there. We had spent most of the day travelling, so we had to get up quite early to get to the airport, etc, etc, and so we were keen to check into our hotel. So we headed to the hotel, which was like a 10-15 minute tram ride from the centre of town, which was the perfect distance. It was really close and easy to get in and get to all the places we wanted to visit, but it wasn't so close that it was loud. It was so quiet and we slept really well. The hotel itself was beautiful. I'd really recommend it. They actually included breakfast, an afternoon treat, which is like coffee and cake, and dinner in the cost of the hotel, and it was a very similar price to a lot of the other hotels in the area that didn't offer this. I was really impressed with the food and the service, and the hotel itself was absolutely beautiful, especially downstairs in like the shared common areas. So we got an early night and decided to set out early on Sunday morning. We headed straight to a sculpture park. We took the tram from outside the hotel. It was very easy to get to, and this was one of my biggest highlights of the trip. I thought it was amazing. It was absolutely treacherous. The ice, and there were lots of hills, and we were slipping and sliding everywhere. And it was very poorly iced in most places. I'm not sure whether it's because it's outside of season or what, but we were sliding and ended up walking through deep snow instead of the paths, so that we didn't fall over quite as much. But we had a really big laugh doing this, and it was very fun. This park was one of two sculpture parks we went to, and it had more modern sculptures by different artists. There was one with pants hanging like lanterns. There was this beautiful section of lights like hanging down that kept changing colour, and I took a couple of pictures there, but I swear to you it took me 10 minutes to get about 3 meters across the ice to get those pictures, and I was holding giant sticks in my hands trying to navigate it. That's the things that we do for Instagram, but I was very worried about slipping over. But it was magical. really magical. We spent quite a few hours here walking around and looking at all of the art and just talking and having a laugh. So I definitely recommend this as a place to visit. I can't speak for how busy it would be in peak season, but off season it was very quiet. There was a few locals and that was it. Oh, there was a dog, and I met a dog and threw snowballs for the dog, and then the owner was calling the dog back, and the dog wouldn't go back because I was playing with it. Don't tell Mash, she'll get jealous. After the sculpture park, I was really keen to go to the Sunday market. I'd heard really good things about it. The Sunday market is a crafts market. It's local artisans and crafters sell their items. The address that we got given, or that I found online, took us to a road and it looked like there was absolutely nothing there. But if you keep walking down and turn the corner, there are all of the stalls. Some are inside, some are outside. It was quite small, but there's some really cool, quirky items, some crochet and knit items, but lots of photos and art and jewellery, that kind of stuff. And it was just a really nice atmosphere. That part of town felt very different to a lot of the rest of the city that we visited. If you've been to London, it gave me a bit of an East London Brick Lane vibe, so it was a bit more trendy and hipster and cool, and I really liked the mix. So really close by to the Sunday market is the Pickles yarn store, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the only yarn stores that's open on a Sunday. And of course, you know, I had to go. I've been meaning to go for the longest time. I've really wanted to try out their yarn, and that is exactly what I did. So we headed over there. Rob took a stroll down the street, and I did possibly one of the most embarrassing things and the most stupid English person, sorry, excuse my language, twatty things. I literally walked into the shop, and the lady who might have been the owner welcomed me in Norwegian, and my brain heard her ask me where I was from. She just said welcome in Norwegian, or something to that effect, and my brain went, she's asked me where I come from, and I went, England. And she just looked at me, and I looked at her, and I didn't realise that I had said the wrong thing, and I went, I'm from England, I'm English. Oh God, my cheeks are heating up just thinking about it now. Even my ears went red, and she went, that's nice, welcome, thanks for telling me that. And it was only after that I realised that she had just said welcome and not where did I come from, because in what world does the first thing you say to someone when they enter your shop is where are you from? I'm such a div. That was so embarrassing, and then I took ages in the shop looking around, and I was just, the more I was thinking about it, the more and more embarrassed I was getting. And just from having that memory now, my ears are so hot. It was really embarrassing, but the lady was so lovely, really lovely, really knowledgeable, spoke to me a lot about the different types of yarn whilst I was cringing inside, and I ended up leaving with some yarn. I think I'll give you a quick peek here. So this is the yarn that I left with. It's the Tuk Merino Tweed. It's 85% merino, 10% wool, 4.5% viscose, 10.5% wool, 4.5% viscose, and it is like very loosely spun, single ply, super soft tweedy yarn, and I really wanted to try it, so this is what I picked up. I picked up a sweater quantity, so that's what I picked up from that shop. And on the way out, she repeated England back to me, and I died a little bit inside, but she had such good humour and was so lovely to this ignorant English person. And yes, so we had a wonderful time. I couldn't recommend the shop more. I couldn't have felt more welcome, even though I was such a bloody plank. And yes, I definitely recommend, and it's quite nice to tie it in on Sunday where you can go to the market, and it was literally a 5-minute walk around the corner, and we ate waffles from a cafe on the way, which made things even better. So the days are a bit shorter in that part of the world, so we tried to cram as much as we could in the morning and the afternoon, and because it's meant to be a holiday too and we're not normally very good at relaxing, we went back and decided to relax after this. So we went back to the hotel, had some afternoon tea, watched some films, had dinner, and it was really lovely and cozy. We really enjoyed it, but that meant we could start nice and early again the next morning. Monday morning we got up early again and headed to a different sculpture park, which was equally as beautiful and enjoyable, but this had more not traditional, but less avant-garde art. It was more, there were lots of statues and sculptures, but it was absolutely beautiful and really, really interesting. We really enjoyed walking around here and took our time looking at things and talking about what we saw. So walking distance from this sculpture park happened to be another yarn store. It was Tjorvengarn. I'm doing that absolutely no justice, but I will put the names in for you. This shop I did the most damage in. So they were quite small but crammed from top to bottom with yarn. It was put out really beautifully. It was stacked with all of the colours and all the different sections. They had a ton of Raumer, which is what I was looking for, and the shop was really busy, so I tried to get the odd shot, but it just would have been people because it was so crammed in there. But if you know what you want, or you want a good selection of Raumer and some of the Norwegian yarns, I 100% recommend this shop. They were very polite and nice, very busy, and they helped a ton. So I picked up a basket and filled it with lots of Raumer. So let me show you what I got. So I picked up Raumer Finnel in this beautiful lilac colour. The colour is 4306. I bought a cardigans quantity. Then I picked up Raumer, well, this is all Raumer Garn Finnel. Then I picked up this yellow in colour 4986. And then which is a cardigans quantity. And then I also picked up this beautiful blue in 4385. I really like this blue. It's like a violet blue. Really, really one of my favourite shades of blue. It makes me think of Anastasia from the film. I keep saying it's a Disney film. I think Disney bought it, but it wasn't originally a Disney film. One of the best princess films in my opinion. For a t-shirts quantity in this. So I picked up quite a lot of yarn that I really, really, really love from that shop. It did seem to be about the same price in most places that we went. I didn't analyse it down to the penny or whatever the Norwegian equivalent is, but they were all around the same ballpark figure. So I wouldn't say that you should buy it in one place over another. There may be Norwegians or local what are you called if you're from Oslo? Oslians? I don't know. If you're from Oslo and you know that there's a particularly cheap place to pick up Raumer, then maybe mention it below, but I found that there wasn't a significant difference in and around the city. I just checked my notes and actually I did get another cardigans quantity from the same shop. I got this beautiful, very, very light grey. It looks more creamy on camera than it does in person. It's like the lightest shade of grey. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it's cream. I think, to me it reads the lightest shade of grey, but it's very, very, very light. It just looks completely different to me now than it did before. So the colour is 403. Yes, I think that's the lightest shade of grey, which again I find to be quite a flattering colour. So then we took the tram back into town, and there are two yarn shops that I visited in like the main city centre that are walking distance. We went to the main church. Ooh, I'm not sure I remember the name. For some reason St Stephen's is in my head. I don't know if that's actually right. We went to the main church and they're both walking distance from the church, like 5-10 minutes. And the first one I went to Stashquisitions. Oh dear, I shouldn't even try, should I? I bet that's awful. Please forgive me, fellow Norwegians. No, I'm not Norwegian, clearly, from the way that I've just pronounced that. This was like a classic modern yarn shop. I think Pickles obviously only stocked all of their own yarn and was very minimalist and cool and really nice. Then the second one I went to that I was just talking about was very like very clean and simple and filled with Norwegian yarn, but very like classic yarn shop. And then this one really felt like modern yarn shop. It had lots of cool notions and books and different little areas and alcoves and loads of different types of yarn and loads of samples. Now that's nearly where I did a lot of damage in this shop, is every single sample they had in the store I wanted the yarn for. Some of the patterns were patterns I'd seen before online and not been remotely interested in, but the colours that they chose to use and the yarn that they chose to use made it so much more appealing. So I really do recommend going there, even just for inspiration. I ended up not actually buying anything, which was really hard, but I tried really to be strict and stick to my list, and none of the items on there were on my list, and also a lot of them were not items that would necessarily fit with my wardrobe, but I wanted nonetheless. Yeah, but I ended up not buying anything, but I really recommend it as a visit just because it's a really cool, quirky shop and there's lots of interesting little pieces and potential gifts to pick up for other knitters. After visiting them, I headed to the second yarn shop, which was Heimen Husfliden. Get out, Molly, stop it. And they actually have two shops in town, one that sells yarn and one that does not sell yarn, and of course I ended up at the one that does not sell yarn, but the lady inside was very helpful and gave me instructions to the other shop, which was only a 5-minute walk away. The one that didn't sell yarn had lots of traditional Norwegian clothes and items, which was a really cool thing to look at anyway. However, I wanted the yarn, so the yarn store is actually in the basement of a shopping centre right next to the church that I was at earlier that day. It's very similar to the second yarn shop, Tjorven, or however you say it, where they had lots and lots and lots of different colours of the same classic staple Norwegian yarns. So Raume, Sadnesgarn, pretty much all of them. And I had a look around. It was much bigger than the other shop, and they had so much choice. I found it really overwhelming. And I had already done so much damage, I didn't want to buy too much more yarn. Well, I did want to, but I knew I shouldn't buy too much more yarn because I was already panicking how my very full rucksack was going to fit all of this inside it. So I ended up just picking up some more Raume in the colour 459, which is like the darkest navy. In certain lights it looks a bit black, but you can see next to my black jumper it's not black, it's very dark navy. And I picked up a cardigan quantity of this. I also managed to get an additional ball of the lilac, so when I went to the second yarn shop I only managed to get 5 and I wanted 6 to be sure that I had enough. So I picked that up too, and it was a perfect colour match. But that is all I ended up purchasing. I actually intended on going back and seeing if they had the yarn for another one of my projects. However, we ran out of time. I was going to do that on our last day, which is the following day, Tuesday. However, it would have been very tight for me to make it back for the bus, and I don't have the best sense of direction. So I ended up not risking it and going, and I think I did get a lot of yarn, so I didn't really need an additional purchase. However, I do again recommend if you know what you want, or you want a good selection of the Norwegian yarns you hear so much about online, then that's another really great shop to visit. So all that yarn shopping made me really hungry, and whilst we were there we mostly just ate at the hotel, other than the odd waffle or snack here and there, because we had such good food and it was so filling. We were eating our body weight in breakfast food in the morning. Dinner was really great too. Sorry, Mash is licking her paws, so if you can hear lots of slopping about, I'm really sorry. It's not the nicest sound. She's just cleaning her little paws right there. So anyway, I was starving, and so I really wanted takeout, and I didn't want to go to McDonald's because obviously it's McDonald's, but they have their own, I'm presuming their own version, which is called Max Burger, and I went and tried those, and they had amazing veggie options. I had a halloumi burger and fries, and Rob I think had a beef burger, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It's like crappy takeaway food, like it's not Not anything fancy, but I'd done so much shopping and walking and skating around on the ice. We just wanted something dirty. Well, I did, and I corrupted Rob because he's much healthier than me. And it was delicious. So if you want a takeaway whilst you're there, a bit of junk food, I really recommend. Tuesday was our last day, and the flight was in like the early evening, so we had to leave in the early afternoon, so we tried to fit quite a lot in. We got up early-ish again, but the museums don't open until 10 o'clock. So we decided we wanted to, well, Rob had lots of recommendations on the Fram Museum, which is about boats and shipping and adventurers. I'd done so much knitting and things, I thought of course we have to go to the place that he wants to go to. We were planning on getting the ferry across, but it seems like from what we could gather they might not run in the winter, so we ended up taking the bus around, which was very quick and easy. I was not expecting much, it's not something I'm particularly interested in, but actually it was really cool. So they're in like these giant teepee style constructions, or like canvas pyramids, and they have ships. They have whole ships, 2 whole ships, and you can go inside them and walk around, and they've done it very interactive style, which was very interesting. Other parts of the museum were a lot of reading. They've got more English than they have Norwegian, so they're definitely appealing to tourists, and it was very interesting. I did learn a lot about like the Inuits, and also like explorers, and all the crazy shit that they did and how scary it sounded, but I did really enjoy walking through the boat. So for someone that is not particularly my area of interest, I did actually really enjoy that museum. We ended up spending a lot longer in the museum than expected, so we headed back into town, set ourselves up at the bus station, and that's when I debated going back to Heimenhusflieden. I'm such an idiot. And we debated going back, however Rob wasn't going to come with me and my sense of direction is poor, and I was like, if I don't make it back for the bus then I'll miss the plane, and I just can't deal with that, so I ended up not going back, and we just set ourselves up at Bit. It's like a bakery style cafe thing inside the station. They did amazing like cinnamon swirl type stuff, but lots of different flavour ones, and sandwiches and things. So we had really good snack there and waited for our bus, and then headed home to the airport. So the last little funny thing that happened before we left is I was carrying my rucksack plus 2 bags filled with these yarns, and I was like, somehow I've got to fit this into nothing so that we can get on the plane without being charged, what is it, like 70 quid for extra luggage. So I wish I'd filmed this and I hadn't. Rob has this massive like Eskimo style coat and it has loads of pockets, and so at first he said no and I was like, please. And I started filling all of his pockets with the yarn. I also had a fur coat that I didn't put on. I put the like bags down my sleeves, which were quite narrow, and filled it with yarn. And then I put a few in my bag, put a few in my pockets. I had 3 skirts on, so I had more room in my bag to put it in, and miraculously no one challenged it. I actually think they were so relaxed, and you never know who you're going to get at the airport. Some people don't care and some people are really strict. I don't think they would have cared even if I was holding a bag. So it was very funny, and people were watching me before the flight, hiding my yarn everywhere. And when we got to the other end, when we got home, Rob was pulling out. She's like, what on earth have you put in my pocket? So that was funny. He also carried my whip, which I haven't spoken about. So everything I was making was at a complicated stage or too big to bring along, so I ended up casting on a new project. I made the baby bear bonnet by Pernille Larsen of Knitting for Olive. I'll pop in a picture here because it's downstairs and I'm too lazy to go and get it, but I have made a couple of these now for friends, but also for our little bubs that's on the way, so that was a really nice thing to do whilst we were travelling. Although it is a bit faffy for a travel project, there's lots of putting things on hold, and yeah, it is a bit faffy, but it was nice and small and didn't take up too much space. I was expecting to see lots of knits, with Oslo being the knitting capital of the world. Not as cold as I was expecting. It was definitely coat weather. It was between 0 and -5 Celsius most days. Although it just didn't feel as, when it's that cold in the UK, it feels colder here, so it was definitely better than that. However, before I get too off on the weather, you know how us Brits are, I didn't see as many knits as I was expecting because they were probably on underneath coats. The one thing I saw a ton of was the petite knit mini Sophie scarf. Not even the big one, the mini ones were everywhere. I actually took a video of one very young teen sat opposite me in the cafe with hers on the table, and one of her friends was wearing one around the necks, and I was just sitting there going, I know what that is, but I didn't talk to them because I'm shy. But I saw a lot of those, but apart from that I didn't see too many knits outside of the knit shops, purely again because they were probably underneath all of the coats. So I'll just finish up by going through the yarn behind me, what each one is for, and then also what projects I've already started. So this, as you probably guessed from my list at the beginning, is for the Forest Berry jacket by Fable Knitwear. This is for the Home Front Tee by Squidney Knits. This is for the Synkestra, I don't know why I find that so hard to say, the Synkestra cardigan by Skein Knit. This, which I'm only showing one of because the rest is already in a project, is this Pickles yarn is for another Norma jean, so what I'm wearing with a slightly shallower neckline, because I love this jumper so much. I think it pairs so well with everything. I really want another, and this yarn is really similar to the sample that Fable Knitwear has, and I really like it. The yellow, as you probably guessed from my list, the yarn's making my face itchy, is for a Delacour cardigan, and the navy is for my new design, which will be the next one, advertising next month when I get my head around some of the maths that I need to do. So that one is already, I have an extra ball that's already being used. So to wrap up, I had an amazing time. I couldn't recommend Oslo more. The people were lovely, the cultural spots were great, and the yarn shopping was, well, quite frankly incredible. The only thing I wish was that we had longer time and more space in our luggage, but maybe my bank will thank me for not doing quite the amount of damage. But I definitely recommend it. It was absolutely amazing. Stay tuned on these episodes and you'll see how many of these yarns I get through before the end of the year. Like I said, they were picked from the top of my Ravelry queue, so hopefully, that's another thing I really struggle with, Ravelry, to get my lips around. Filthy, absolutely filthy. So I hope to get through most of them by the end of the year, because those are the things that I really want to make. I'm really keen to get through some cardigans, and I think that's exactly what my wardrobe needs, especially as it was warming up and some of them are very springy colours, and I'm very, very, very ready for the spring. Have a wonderful week, and I wish you lots of happy knitting, and I will see you again next time to show you everything that I made in January and February, and I'll give you a bit more details on this jumper because this was finished in January amongst others. Until next time.